Hi, this is Steve. Where has this piece come from? Well, I've been doing a lot of cognitive science work, including listening to Dr. John Vervaeke's YouTube series, After Socrates. It's a cognitive science class covering many things, but importantly, how to think more deeply and challenge what we think we know, and vitally, how we think and know. Be nice, be kind. We often see this on social media, being exhorted to be nice and kind. It's a soundbite which surely no one could argue against. But it's often the claim of all sorts of social activism, for example, some of which oppose each other, and they can't all be right about being nice and kind, surely. So what is be nice, be kind, niceness, kindness? Well, it's a shallow, childlike level of simplicity. The more you try and simplify the complex, the more nuances you will miss. The more important connections you won't make. So the more mistakes you will make. And the more adverse consequences, some seen but rationalized away, some unforeseen with negative consequences, will arise from your actions. So let's dive into be nice, be kind a little further. In simple basic situations, of course, it's fine. We all know what to do when someone falls over in the street or drops their shopping. We all know what to do if we are with friends and we have a bag of sweets and they don't. But there are many situations which are much more complex than a trite slogan can cope with. And therefore, repeating the trite slogan as if it's some miraculous philosophical wisdom is unhelpful, and when dealing with complex issues, is foolish and even dangerous. So here are some questions and thoughts to hopefully demonstrate not why the concepts of niceness and kindness are more complex than a trite slogan, but why they must be more complex if we are to fully understand what we mean by nice and kind, and to be able to judge what behavior is appropriate in any given situation. Are nice and kind the same as each other? We often use them interchangeably, but are they the same, exactly the same, in all circumstances? Okay, just take 60 seconds, please. Define niceness without having to give an actual example or using any form of the word kind. And then define kindness without having to give an example or using any form of the word nice. Try and think about the assumptions you're making while deciding on your definitions. Are those assumptions always true? Always valid? Or are they there because the concepts are so hard you've shoehorned the assumptions in to make it easier to think about? Easier to rationalize your desired view of what kind and nice are? Is niceness or kindness to yourself exactly the same behavior as niceness or kindness to others? Always? Really? Remember, if you're being nice or kind to yourself, someone else might think you're being unkind or nasty to them. If you're prioritizing you, they may think you should have been prioritizing them. Can you think of a scenario where that could happen? I can. So, nice and kind being simultaneously the opposite, or are the concepts different when dealing with yourself and others? Who decides in any given situation what words or actions are nice or kind. Think of the old saying, sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. How does that work? How, in what way can cruelty, unkindness, be kind? But importantly, also think how, in what way could kindness be cruel? Niceness and kindness are abstract metaphysical ideas, constructs that we have invented to explain, well, what exactly? Niceness and kindness are not objects, not things. They're things we experience, and they're things we think we can make happen. But what are they? Sorry, what's that you say? We know them when we see them? Okay, but how? What is that form of knowing? How has it come about? How can one onlooking person experience an action by another as nice or kind, but another onlooker experience the same action in the same situation as not nice, not kind? Doesn't the fact that this can happen negate any definition? Because niceness and kindness are in the eye of the beholder, arbitrary to each person. They are whatever you decide they are, whatever you want them to be. And who has the moral right to tell you you're wrong? Even when the vast majority of people disagree with you. This is the trans rights argument, right? Who decides in any given situation if you've been kind or nice enough? And the flip side of that, is it possible to be too nice, too kind in a given situation? Explain what you mean by too nice or too kind. Hard, isn't it? But we can't discount the concept of too nice or too kind, because we can surely think of examples where it would be reasonable to use those terms. Indeed, the fact that we have too nice as a concept, as a accepted piece of language, says it must be possible, or the concept and language for it wouldn't exist. Is an action described as nice or kind always the same as the right action, or a good action, or the best action? Right, good, best. Three more abstract constructs that are equally hard to generalize or fully define, because again, unless you're talking about strict empiric science, when we're just talking about it in general terms, even best, it's in the eye of the beholder. They're all in the eye of the beholder. Did you use the word right or good or best in your definitions of kind and nice? Defining an abstract construct using equally abstract constructs. What are we doing in our thinking then? If you say yes, nice or kind are always the same as right or good or best, assuming for the moment that they are the same as each other, which of course they're not, then why are nice and kind the same as right and good and best? How? Can you really not think of any situation where that wouldn't be true? Where your own definition of niceness or kindness would not be the right thing? would prove to be counterproductive or negative in some way. On the other hand, if you say no, nice or kind are not always the same as what's right or what's good or what's best, then that means niceness or kindness can, in fact, sometimes be wrong, bad, suboptimal, immoral, unkind, unnice, nasty. But again, how can something also be its own opposite? Should you be nice or kind for the immediate moment, the immediate circumstance? Or do you have a moral obligation to consider the kindness or niceness of your actions with the future in mind? Can you not think of any scenario in which being what to all reasonable appearance seems to be nice or kind in that moment turns out to have been unkind or nasty in the future, at least in terms of outcomes? And could you not have foreseen that, or at least its possibility? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but on the occasions when some more careful thought would allow you to foresee potential negative future consequences, how do you decide what to do now? What right have you got to prioritize the now at the expense of the future? That's the climate activist question, isn't it? Or vice versa, prioritizing the future at the expense of the now, the complaint of those who suffer due to climate control policies, higher taxes, higher energy bills, higher food bills, etc. Because the future will judge you to have been not right or not good or not best, however well meant at the time. The future will say, that wasn't a nice or kind thing to do. Look what's happened. Look at the consequences. And if you can't think of any such scenario where you must not be nice, must not be kind, I respectfully think you're mistaken. Any parent can tell you that you have to be unkind in the moment sometimes for the better good of the child's future. But if you can think of a scenario where your view of what is nice or kind in the moment could be seen as the opposite in the future, then what does that say about how we make decisions as to what to do or say in the now, in the moment? What do you do when you have to choose who to be kind to and who to be unkind, as they would see it, to? If you're having to choose between people who both have some validity in their desire of you, what they want you to do, but only one can be given it because their desires are in opposition, or you only have enough for one, how do you decide that? An evaluation of your personal gain? Being nice to whichever person will gain you the most personal advantage? The one who will be most useful to you in the future? The one whose friendship you most prize? That sounds rather selfish to me. Can selfishness be nice or kind? Or maybe you'll make some evaluation of deserving. But how do you decide who is more deserving? Some cases will be easy, but again, you can surely think of scenarios where both cases are equally deserving. Okay, so we're not making the decision on any form of personal gain to ourselves. So are we using some small p politically constructed victim or power hierarchy judgment? Who we decide needs our kindness or niceness most? Who deserves our kindness or niceness most? Again, it all sounds a bit distasteful, calculated, Machiavellian, even ideological for a nice and kind person, doesn't it? Who decides what is nice or kind? You or the person you are judging? Judging? Well, yes, because when deciding whether or not and how to be nice or kind, you are making a judgment of deserving or worthiness in some way. Your brain does this incredibly quickly, but judgment happens. If you decide that morally you must let them, the other person, decide whether you're being nice or kind, you may find yourself saying or agreeing to things you don't believe or know aren't true. But by telling yourself that they are the ones who must get to decide, you've boxed yourself into a behavioral corner. It's what ideologically possessed people do all the time. They've ceded the decision, the moral decision-making power, to the ideology, and that forces their behavior. Look at trans rights activist allies. Telling the lie that binary human sex is not real and that it is possible to change sex because you've decided that they must make the decision, that you've ceded the decision-making process about what is being nice or kind to them. By ceding your autonomous right to decide, you've boxed yourself into a behavioral corner which can lead to lies, hypocrisies, failures of internal logic, huge situational inconsistencies, and the like. That's not good. It's not good for you as much as anyone. Take the example of a drug addict or alcoholic. They think you're being nice or kind if you give them money to get more drugs or alcohol, but that's clearly debatable. How will the future judge you if you simply feed their addiction and they end up in an early grave? But if you don't give them the money, instead judging that to be nice or kind, the best thing to do is to refuse the money, but instead perhaps try and help them get off drugs or alcohol, they will say how nasty and unkind you are being at that moment. And indeed, they may do something desperate to get the drugs or alcohol that you've refused them, which may result in crime or their death. And if they do, now how nice and kind were you, in fact? Where was your judgment over what's nice and kind then? However, if you decide that morally it's you who decides what's nice or kind, you're now imposing your morality, your ethics onto someone else. And that doesn't sound very nice or kind either, does it? Colonialism was bad, wasn't it? And what was that if not imposing our morality, ethics, religion, etc. onto others? What's the difference? Remember, these days, apparently the number one rule is you mustn't hurt someone's feelings. That's not nice or kind. Even if you're telling the truth or stating something you honestly believe, you can't say it if it will hurt their feelings. As an aside, you'll note that it's okay to hurt the feelings of white heterosexual males as much as you like, exposing another simplistic, shallow, ideologically imposed moral judgment. So even if you're telling the truth or stating something you honestly believe, you can't say it if it will hurt their feelings. You can't even ask perfectly reasonable, legitimate questions if merely making them have to think about it will hurt their feelings. but this forces you into telling lies, or its siblings equivocating and self-censoring. And if you do that, the cowardice involved is shaming. It eats a little part of your soul away every time you do it. Okay, why have I gone through this exercise in complex questioning, complex thinking? Trying to show you for what seems a very simple and good idea, be nice, be kind, that for important societal issues, it's way more complicated than that, and must be so to have any chance of coming out with a wise conclusion. Be nice, be kind is ludicrously simplistic, certainly to apply to important societal issues. As we see from various intersectional activist infighting, be nice, be kind is too often used as a weaponized or naive empathy, which simply won't do, as it ignores real nuance, real complexity, and practical real-world difficulties which are present all too often. Oversimplifying complex issues is neither nice nor kind. It's intellectually lazy at best, often plain cowardly, and sometimes deliberately deceitful. When considering major societal issues, claiming some form of niceness or kindness may get you off the hook of your conscience in the moment. It may allow you to self-righteously pat yourself on the back in the moment. It may allow the tribe or tribes you've allied yourself to say, well done, and for you to feel vindicated. But in fact, it's dangerous, utopian thinking. That closed-minded, simplistic level of thinking is dangerous when applied to complex societal issues. It's pie-in-the-sky, wishful thinking. And in practical terms, on important moral and ethical issues, claiming simplicity and certainty about your moral judgments of rightness and wrongness, niceness or kindness can be positively counterproductive. It's how authoritarian governments come into being. I know, so you must. In the key influences and bastions of our society, politics, media, universities, supposedly neutral experts, supposedly neutral police force, supposedly neutral legal profession, Christian churches, large corporations, unelected quangos like the UN and WHO, unelected billionaires buying influence they have no right to, we are seeing more and more closed-minded, narcissistic, self-righteous, shallow, tribalistic thinking and attitudes. A puritanical, authoritarian state is now a real possibility, where those who disagree are denied the protection of the police, of the law, and are silenced one way or another. It's a return to the mid-17th century Salem witch trials, and I encourage you to read Andrew Doyle's book, The New Puritans. I certainly don't want to be like that, or to live in a society like that, and I'm sure neither do you. We are the only ones who can stop this new, simplistic, be nice, be kind, as the biggest bullies define them, puritanical ideology taking over. And we must do it by setting an example in how to think, how to discuss, how to make decisions, and speaking up firmly, but calmly and politely against authoritarianism and self-righteousness, against moralizing puritanism, wherever we come across it. Thanks for listening.